first thing we need is a ceasefire, obviously. We need to end the suffering of the people of Gaza in order to be able to focus on what comes next. There is now discussion of potentially reaching a ceasefire through the hostage negotiations. That would be very, very positive, and of course we support the release of all hostages, but it's absolutely necessary that any ceasefire be permanent, not temporary. And on that basis we can start then working on what comes next. And obviously without a real political pathway, not just for Gaza but for Palestine as a whole, it will be very difficult for Arab countries to discuss how we are going to govern Gaza, especially in the context of the immense destruction that has already befallen there. I was talking yesterday, and the United Nations is saying it is going to take 30 years to rebuild Gaza, 15 years potentially just to remove the rubble. We can't just think about Gaza. We need to think of the situation in its whole context. We have now a population in Gaza, but also in the rest of Palestine, that has been traumatized, that has seen a tremendous suffering and conflict. And in order for us to be able to talk about a sustainable pathway to stability, to security, including for Israel, we're going to have to talk about a Palestinian situation where the Palestinians have hope. And the only way that hope is legitimate is through self-determination, through a credible pathway to a Palestinian state. So that's how we see the situation, and that's, I think, the basis for our engagement. And that's how we think we need to go forward. I think on the bilateral agreements between the Kingdom and the US, we are very, very close. Most of the work has already been done. We have the broad outlines of what we think needs to happen on the Palestinian front. Obviously, from our perspective, and we've coordinated this closely with the Palestinians, it needs to be truly a pathway to a Palestinian state.
That's the language. I mean, a pathway to a Palestinian state.
Credible, irreversible.
Gotcha.
That is the only way it's going to work. And how that's defined, how that looks, is, I think, the details we need to figure out. The key question is under what parameters? Without clarity on those parameters, it's difficult to answer that question as a hypothetical. The Palestinian Authority has some capacity, but obviously that'll need to be supported. What's going to be left? When is all of that goes into the question, but it's very difficult for us to engage on that without clarity on the other element, without clarity on the pathway to Palestinian statehood. If there is clarity on that, it makes everything more tenable. It makes it more tenable practically, because that means that whoever does go in, whether it's an international force mandated by the UN, whether it's a mixed force of some countries that are willing to do it, whatever that force is, it will have the credibility to engage on the ground. There will not be the credibility for those spoilers who will call it an occupying force or anything like that, because it will be a force coming to implement stability, security, safety for the Palestinian people, while they are preparing to finally achieve that goal of self-determination. That's entirely different from some type of security arrangement that is temporary with an unclear political horizon. So that's why we need to have that discussion in tandem. And as we have that discussion, we will have more clarity of who could possibly go in.